Hello, the old parson here, making my way over to church. Today's a great day. Today's the feast of St. Barnabas. We call him the Apostle Barnabas, or Barnabas the Apostle. He's not really an apostle in the classic sense of the word of the 12 apostles chosen by Christ, but he was an early Christian, came from Cyprus, the tribe of Levi, which kind of made him an important figure in the early church, an important person, part of the religious establishment. Barnabas becomes a Christian, and he's very close to the apostles and to the inner circle of the church in Jerusalem. What I like about Barnabas is I call him the saint of second chances. He must have been a really kind man, because when St. Paul was converted, St. Paul, persecuted the church before his conversion, did all kind of havoc among the Christians. When Paul was converted, after a year or two, Paul comes to Jerusalem and he wants to meet the apostles. They want nothing to do with him. They want to stay far away. Christians shunned Paul in Jerusalem. They were afraid of him. Who knew? They have good reason to be. And who was it that acted as the intermediary? St. Barnabas. Barnabas talks to Paul, befriends Paul, and then he goes back to the apostles and says, listen, give the guy a break. And so it was through Barnabas that St. Paul is introduced to the apostles. And so there begins a great friendship. Eventually, Paul goes back to Tarsus. Barnabas is commissioned to go and preach among the Jews to convert them to Christ. So what does he do? He goes back to Tarsus and he gets Paul. He says, come on, you got to come help me. So it's Paul and Barnabas that go to Antioch, preach the gospel there. The Christians are first called, believers are first called Christians. Then they decide they're going to go on more missions. And so they begin this companionship of preaching together the missions for Christ. They take a young man with them named John Mark. John Mark is, again, Barnabas for friends, this young man who has a vocation to be a preacher. And so they take him along with the missionary journey. However, midway through the mission, John Mark gets homesick and he can't do it. He wants to go home. And so he abandons them and goes back home. When the apostles head back after their mission, they're getting ready for the second mission. And John Mark now is a little more mature. He wants to try it again. Paul says, no. Once burnt, no, not going to do it. So Paul wants nothing to do with him. And who takes up the slack? Barnabas. Barnabas says, we got to give this kid a second try. And so Barnabas and John go off and do their own mission, eventually evangelizing the people of the island of Cyprus. And so Cyprus becomes a Christian nation under the preaching of St. Barnabas and St. John Mark. Both will die a martyr's death and prove themselves as good and faithful Christians. What I love about St. Barnabas is he believed in giving people a second try. And oftentimes we kind of make rash judgments about people, and we don't like what they see, or we don't like what we see, or they don't like what we hear. We make these rash judgments. St. Barnabas, pray for us. Help us to look always for the good in another person, and even when they fail, to give them a second try. God bless you.